Okay, and thank you for joining us once again, listeners. As we are programming on unceded Coast Salish territories, we're also connected and thinking about what is happening in Gaza. And joining us on the line is Dr. Margaret McGregor, who is a assistant professor, clinical associate professor with the UBC Department of Family Practice, and also a founding member of BC Physicians Against Genocide. And we've talked with healthcare workers and physicians linked with your organization, your collective recently as well. And it's I guess, a pleasure in a sense. These are the circumstances which bring us together here, Dr. Margaret McGregor, to talk about the situation not only in Palestine, but how it is affecting and connecting us all here. So thank you very much for taking this time and joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
So you are also a founding member of the BC Physicians Against Genocide, and perhaps it's a good place to start there. Maybe if you are open to sharing with us your intersection to this issue and how you came to decide that we need a collective and then form the BC Physicians Against Genocide.
We formed actually fairly recently, about this time last year, and many of the sort of founding members had been active calling out the genocide for really since 2020, and had attended rallies. There was another group that's very effective, a fabulous group called BC Healthcare Workers for Palestine, and we were all connected with that group as well. But we thought there might be a role for a specifically physician voice in trying to increase efforts and sort of focused voices on this horrific event that keeps unfolding. And really, as doctors, we saw the target attacks on healthcare workers, on hospitals, on the healthcare system, which is, described in some ways as a multiplier effect, because you attack and you kill doctors, and that has a ripple effect on the impacts of many lives, the patients they're serving, likewise the healthcare system, and also the role that many physicians played in bearing witness as credible reporters of what was going on. So yeah, that's kind of how we started out.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, thank you for sharing that. It's a good distinction that you made in terms of, okay, look, we have a number of healthcare worker collectives. BC Physicians also wanted to gather together physicians specifically. There are so many intersections with that. So you've formulated a year ago, and of course today, the reason we asked you to come and join us was because on April the 10th, there's a virtual town hall featuring Dr. Samaj Jabr. Would you like to maybe first talk about another physician, Dr. Abu Sufyan, who, as we know, anyway, can you tell us your intersection? Maybe let's hear it from you.
Well, one of the things that horrified us, that really, some of us worked as obstetricians and in the neonatology area, and Dr. Abu Safia is a pediatrician and a neonatologist. That's someone who deals with newborns. And he was also the director of a hospital named the Kamal Adwan Hospital. And in December 2024, he was apprehended and taken away, as has been the case and continues to be the case with many physicians who work in Gaza. And basically there was a worldwide campaign, and there continues to be, for his release. BC Physicians Against Genocide participated in a letter-writing campaign to put pressure on our governments and our professional associations to speak out, to demand his release. And there was a press conference in 2025, and we continue to sort of advocate for his immediate release. There has been a recent report from the Human Rights Office of the High Commissioner that did a visit to him. They managed to get access to him, and they report that he continues to be subjected to torture, and his health condition remains grave. So he really needs to be let out now before something very, very serious happens. And he is front and center of one of our campaigns as BC Physicians Against Genocide. Speaking to the other doctor mentioned, Dr. Samaj Jabr, we're actually organizing a virtual meeting for this person, and she is a Palestinian psychiatrist and psychotherapist. And one can imagine, it's challenging to be a specialist for any kind of body part, but to be caring for the mental health well-being of a population that's subjected to what people in Gaza have been subjected to is pretty unimaginable. She was actually the former head of the mental health unit in Palestine's Ministry of Health until fairly recently. She practices in the public and private spheres of psychiatry, so she probably does private psychotherapy. She's taught in the classroom and obviously in clinical settings in the hospital and clinics, and she's taught in several Palestinian universities. She's also affiliated with the George Washington University within the Division of Global Mental Health, where she's currently an associate clinical professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences. So she's a pretty amazing CV, and we're really excited to hear what she's going to share with us about her work and her lived experience of being a psychiatrist. She's written a book called Radiance in Pain and Resilience. It was just out last year, I think, or maybe last year, 2025. And I've read part of it, but the underlying theme of her book is that mental illness in Palestine can't be competently diagnosed or treated if you just look at the individual. And this is true probably for many contexts. But in terms of Palestine and Gaza, without treatment being grounded in a really solid understanding of people's specific history and experience of genocide, you'll be kind of flapping in the breeze. And she sort of calls out the absurdity of Western approaches to psychiatry that tries to do that. Here in the West, we have something called the Diagnostic, and I can't remember, the DSM manual, and it's a kind of shopping list of various diagnoses. But it completely fails to account for the political and community level determinants of mental health. So in her book is of a young man who, after observing her father's inability to protect the family when they're home, was raided by Israeli soldiers, decides he can no longer respect or listen to his father's advice, and the impact, the profound impact that had on family dynamics. And presumably this was in the context of level kind of psychological support. One of the professional areas of her expertise also is training others around documentation of torture. So this is other mental health workers and probably other healthcare workers in general. But it seems to be interesting and important skill that both can build resilience for patients as well as the people caring for them through this shared activity of resistance as therapy. And you ask why we felt compelled to do something. A lot of it is this element of therapy for ourselves as well, to know that we've tried to do as much as we can, and that the only way to kind of care for the overwhelming sadness and pain that one experiences through bearing.
Yes, most definitely. Are you still there with us, Margaret?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. It's just that sometimes our call pauses, so I wanted to make sure.
No, I'm still here.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing what you just did and the context around it. I wanted to also acknowledge that the virtual meeting on April the 10th is moderated by local Palestinian healthcare worker Caroline Abedrabboh and also Muhammad Sultan, and opening remarks by Jada-Gabrielle Pape, a Coast Salish artist, and also is somebody who is working on this connection between indigenous folk here and Palestinians. There is obviously a curve, and it is different, but in many ways it is the same. So when you were speaking about Dr. Samaj Jabr and their work and how they recognized, and it's sort of obvious that environment and the culture within which the trauma took place is as important than just focusing in on the individual. I'm really happy that virtual meeting draws these connections with what's been happening here.
For sure. It's a really important piece of understanding how we got to this place, which is, kind of and again, I'm not speaking for BC PAG now, but my own opinions, is the kind of settler colonialism that has created, stolen ghosted cultures, and this situation that has, led to both the story of Palestine as well as the story of Canada.
Right, no doubt. The title of the virtual meeting is Notes from Palestine: Justice and Collective Healing, which is, again, as we noted, just important for that to be happening here as well as over there.
100%, yeah. And I think that the irony is that there's a long way to go, but there's at least an acknowledgement here in Canada of the harms that the settler colonial system did to Indigenous people. Mm-hmm. And there is ongoing attempts at reconciliation, albeit as perhaps unremarkable as, they could be. They could be a lot better. Mm-hmm. But the unwillingness to acknowledge that same story, which is the story of Palestine, is incredible, really. We're, we give courses on Indigenous cultural safety. We make it a real point of acknowledging the land, and many acknowledgement includes the fact that the land is unceded, and yet we cannot see the reality that is Gaza and Palestine.
Yeah, it's. I think, though, more and more folk are able to connect these events, these dots.
Of course, at a grassroots level, 100%. But I mean at a much more systemic and structural level.
We are failing as a nation when it comes to that, definitely.
And whereas not necessarily the nation, we at least give lip service to reconciliation.
Yes, it's true. I mean, it's also
the colonial structures have figured out how to do that pretty well.
Of course, I mean, reconciliation is I guess reconciliation is given to us already hollowed out in a way. Even if we look at the number of recommendations and how quickly or slowly the government has moved on them, it's a big indicator that it is very much lip service. However, it's very important work that you guys have been doing, and we look forward to more of this kind of work. Can you tell us some of the other things that BC Physicians Against Genocide has been working on or planning to be doing in the near future?
Yeah, well, we're one of our big activities is we try to engage with our universities, because most of us are involved in clinical or even academic teaching. Some of us in academic mode, we all have kind of clinical positions with the university. So engagement with the university, engagement with the health authorities, engagement with our professional organizations, the Canadian Medical Association, Doctors of BC, and indeed engagement with the Ministry of Health and government to talk to them about our perspective on the genocide and our request for them to acknowledge this, and also to begin integrating anti-Palestinian racism in their DEI training.
Okay.
Because many of these public institutions have DEI training, but they have yet, for the most part, with the exception of UBC, which does, have yet to more healthcare providers.
Okay, no, that's good. And I know that UBC has a very vibrant student collective, a number of them that are also against genocide and have been doing work. So yes. I'm guessing that there's some cross-pollination there as well.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Margaret McGregor, it's been a real pleasure having you on our program, and thank you so much for the work that you do, for sharing the information that you have shared with us today, and we also look forward to catching up with you perhaps down the road with other initiatives.
For sure, and if anybody's interested in contact information about the Dr. Jabr event, you can email us at bcpagteam@gmail.com.
Okay, thank you very much for leaving us with that information as well.
Okay, take care, and thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Thank you so much for the work that you've been doing.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. If things are still going well, we are all still here. And here means the unceded Coast Salish territories. And it also means 100.5 on your dial and at www.coopradio.org. And we are now joined with Shirarose Wilensky, who, as I was mentioning earlier, is a Jewish anti-Zionist parent, a member of the Independent Jewish Voices, and the Peretz Centre for Secular Jewish Culture. So hello, Shirarose.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for taking this time out and joining us. We've invited you to come on board today to discuss our ongoing conversation around a virtual meeting featuring Dr. Samaj Jabr. And it's on April the 10th, and Independent Jewish Voices is one of the supporting organizers, and as is BC Physicians Against Genocide. And we just spoke with Dr. Margaret McGregor from the BC Physicians Against Genocide. It's great to speak with you as well, because you intersect into this conversation through your own personal experiences, and it would be great to have a listen to some of your context, how you intersected with this particular town hall, but even before that, maybe you want to share for us?
Sure, I would be happy to. As you mentioned, I'm a member of Independent Jewish Voices Vancouver, which is a local grassroots organization, and we are part of Independent Jewish Voices National, which has over 2,000 members in Canada. And we're an explicitly anti-Zionist Jewish organization, which means that we oppose Israeli apartheid, Israeli occupation, the oppression of the Israeli state over Palestinians. And I actually personally was raised Zionist. Like, I have a very traditional conservative Jewish background, and I went to Jewish school and Jewish camp and Jewish youth group and all of those things, and all of those things were very explicitly Zionist and pro-Israel. And
where did you grow up? Do you mind sharing?
Sorry.
Like, what area did you grow up in? Like, do you mind sharing it sort of around, like, where, like, did you live all the time in Canada? Were you living elsewhere?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was here in Vancouver.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. And so you were mentioning that you were raised in a very Zionist environment.
Yeah, that's correct. And then over time, I started to, I guess, see the oppression and the lies behind Zionism, and I turned away from that ideology and those beliefs, and decided to devote myself to standing in solidarity with Palestinians in their fight for liberation, and by the same token, fighting for collective liberation for all people, and fighting against all forms of racism, discrimination, and oppression.
And sort of when was that switch happen for you? Around when did that happen?
It has been a gradual process. The way that I see it is like the first half of my life, so about the first 20 or so years of my life, I was, an unquestioning Zionist, and then now it's been a 20-year journey, the second half of my life, of unlearning Zionism, breaking free of that indoctrination, and learning more and more about the Palestinian liberation struggle, and of course, learning how to be in solidarity with Indigenous people here in Canada, in this settler colony as well. And I mean, I'm learning every day, and, being part of organizing events like this one with Dr. Samaj Jabr, that's part of my learning process. I was very fortunate. I got to see her speak last time she was here in the Lower Mainland at the end of last year, and I was just blown away. She, just has so much wisdom to share, and it's really a privilege to be, bringing her to speak again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, we're all looking forward to it, and it's really nice that it's very accessible, that it's going to be virtual, so that anybody from anywhere who's interested is going to be able to connect.
That's right.
Yeah, can you let us know sort of a good link or a URL to point to, so where folks can go to get the information, register, and so on?
Okay, that is a very good question.
I think
I'm looking at the
Instagram.
flyer.
So I know that on Instagram, for example,
Yes.
right, that's probably the best place. And if you type in BC Physicians Against Genocide, or you type in Independent Jewish Voices Vancouver, or even the name will spell it. It's DRSAMAJ, and then JABR. April 10th, you'll find information. Yeah, it's pretty well publicized by now.
Absolutely, and I believe it is on Action Network here. I just found it, and that's where folks can register. And then, of course, they'll receive the link after they register.
Yes.
And all funds, any and all funds raised are going to go to Dr. Jabr's healing initiatives in Palestine.
Yeah, no, that's really nice. As I was mentioning earlier when we spoke with Dr. Margaret McGregor, I mean, I'm really happy that the meeting is also moderated by Caroline Abedrabboh and Muhammad Sultan. Caroline is a local Palestinian healthcare worker, and Muhammad is a member of BC Physicians Against Genocide. And that also opening remarks by Jada-Gabrielle Pape, a Coast Salish artist. It's really nice to have Jada come in and give these, because they've been working a lot around the intersection of Indigenous folk and Palestinians.
Yes, we're so fortunate to have Jada, coming to open the event. And, I think that, anybody who is involved in, the Palestine Solidarity Movement understands that, all of these liberation struggles are intertwined, and, that the only way for any of us to be free is to work together to free all of us. And that it is so important for us to always acknowledge that we're also in a settler colony here in Canada, and the importance of working together with the local Indigenous people and the local Indigenous nations and have right relations as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, no, really nicely said. Shirarose, when was it for you again? Let's go back a little bit, if you don't mind, just sharing, because it's very interesting. We've, in the past, in our program, we've also connected with David Mirviser, Rabbi David Mirviser, right? Who, I mean, not only is a friend, but also has a similar history. Somebody who was pro-Zionist or Zionist at some point, and then understood perhaps that it's better if they change and are now in solidarity with Palestinians. So I guess I, if you don't mind, I would love to know more about your own personal experience in connecting the dots between what we are doing here as on these unceded Coast Salish territories, and what was ongoing and still is over there in Palestine.
Yeah, I mean, I think Indigenous people here on Turtle Island, really see their experiences reflected in what's happening in Gaza and in the whole of occupied Palestine. And, they see similarities between their experiences, and it's important for us as allies to also see those commonalities and, work to, I guess, end those forms of oppression as much as we possibly can between both locations. And for me, one of the, I guess, formative moments on my journey of I guess waking up from my Zionist upbringing and education was that I just happened to fall in love with and marry an Indigenous person, Indigenous to Turtle Island. My husband is Mi'kmaq, and so he was very patient and kind, but of course had a totally different life perspective from the one that I had, and he sort of started to systematically challenge all of the sort of propaganda points about Israel that I had been raised with, and that was really a big part of the process that helped me kind of explore and find other narratives and of looking at the world and other perspectives, than the ones that I had been so used to. No,
that's really nice. Thank you for sharing that. That's nice. that happened. It's a very easy and obvious connection, and I mean, I'm hoping that people find their own ways to this connection, whichever ways is appropriate for them. And I think more and more people are, as this thing has been going on for such a long time, and it's pretty obvious. Unfortunately, we are living in a very, very systemic place that doesn't support that vision, and that's why these virtual meetings are so important, to be able to engage with and listen to people like Dr. Samaj Jabr, who are on the ground and talking about mental health initiatives, and again, the proceeds from the event go towards those mental health initiatives in Palestine directly, which is also really, really awesome. Shirarose, would you like to share anything further around this issue? Anything that we can touch upon?
I think, just to really emphasize, how proud I am to be a part of the group who's planning the event. I sort of was like joking with some of the other people planning it because, I personally don't have any, I'm not a healthcare worker or a physician or a trauma therapist. These are not my areas of background or expertise. But I think, again, I'm coming to it from the perspective of being a member of Independence, and, for us to support these kinds of events is a main piece of our, of our mandate, of our mission, of our reason for being. And so, I'm just very proud and honored to be a part of it. And I think, we have so much to gain and learn and benefit from listening to Palestinians, first and foremost when it comes to their liberation struggle. And, Dr. Jabr, she has just, as I say, so much wisdom to share. And I think it'll be a really incredible event. And having, our local people involved as well, Caroline and Dr. Muhammad, I think it'll just be a really wonderful combination.
Yeah, no doubt. And once again, that's happening on April the 10th, so it's really soon. It's fantastic. And yes, Independent Jewish Voices has been a real stalwart of Alliance. They've been at it for a really, really long time. And, we've talked with Sid and a bunch of other people in the past, and always appreciate their work. And if listeners are not aware, please do just type that in, Independent Jewish Voices. You'll see that it's a national organization and has chapters or communities all over the place, as well as BC Physicians Against Genocide. And I want to leave listeners with the spelling of Dr. Jabr again. It's Dr. Samaj Jabr, SAMAJ and well, Shirarose, what can I say? Thank you so much for taking this time out, for doing the kinds of work that you have been doing, sharing your personal experiences with us and how you're connected to the event. It's good to learn that. We also look forward to engaging with you and other people like the Peretz Centre, which is an organization that I'm unfamiliar with, but I will learn more. Perhaps later we can schedule some time and talk about the work that they are also doing, or other things that come up down the road.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. I would be happy to talk about the Peretz Centre anytime. And in fact, when you were asking about, sort of partnerships, between local communities, an event that's happening at the Peretz Centre also came to mind. The following day, April 11th, there is an art exhibit at the Peretz Centre. It's a decolonial arts exhibit. Sorry, I'm just looking up the the name of it. Dislocation, I think it is. And I think, probably your listeners, if they're interested in Dr. Jabr, they would be really interested in this event as well. And it features art, Zionist Jews, and along these themes. And Yeah, thank you so much for having me on to speak today.
Oh, you're very welcome. And for listeners, I'll just spell out Peretz Center for
right.
Secular Jewish Culture. And if you type in April 11th, I'm sure that information will be coming up.
That's right. Oh, here it is. Settler Displacement, Interrogating Home on Coast Salish Territories.
Awesome. And that's an in-person event?
Yeah, it's in person at the Peretz Centre, which is close to like Oak and 41st,
Okay.
close to where they're sort of like doing that massive renovation of Oak Ridge Centre.
Okay.
So it is accessible by SkyTrain, and it's a free event, and you can register online or just, people are welcome.
Shirarose, I just wanted to cycle back to Dr. Samaj Jabr, and if you would like to share further things that you have learned about them and their work, in order to let our listeners know a little bit more about them.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to share impressions. I think especially because as somebody who does not work in the same fields, like maybe that's helpful for people to get a sense of what she says that had impact for me. But one of the main things that she spoke about the last time I heard her speak was about basically like decolonizing the field, the mental health professions, the fields of psychiatry and psychology as a whole, which I find to be fascinating and profound because, so much of those schools of thought were developed, in Europe from a Western perspective, and, those are not going to always be applicable to every situation, and especially, what's happening in occupied Palestine, and like, for example, the concept of post-traumatic stress disorder. Palestinians are experiencing ongoing traumatic stress. Like there is no there's no after experience for them really yet at this time. And so, they need to be sort of held and treated in a totally different way than we really approach in the West. So that was something that stood out to me. And I know as well, like one of her main areas of work is with survivors of torture. And I think that this is an area that we're hearing and learning more and more about what the Israeli regime has been doing and how they are systematically torturing Palestinians, and how torture is, basically a state entrenched law and perspective and way of treating Palestinians. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot, I think, to learn there. And as well, she was talking about how, when it comes to enforcing, change on regimes that are committing torture, testimonies of victims are not considered to be, enough evidence, which I found to be very disturbing and really shook me just to think, that it's not enough what the victim has to say. Like still what's required is like sort of a co-signing by outside organizations like NGOs or the UN or things like that. And so I think just again, like the injustice of what Palestinians are experiencing, is always mind-boggling, and learning about ways that we can hopefully be in solidarity and work toward justice and collective healing is always really, really, really important. And for us to like hold on to pieces of hope and how we can work together.
Yes, no doubt. Thank you so much for sharing more of that context for our listeners. Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting conversation, and it's going to be a good format so that it's accessible. It's virtual. Folks can join in. And the title of it is Notes from Palestine, Justice and Collective Healing. And you can look it up at the Independent Jewish Voices website, or at BC Physicians Against Genocide, and on Instagram. And we were just speaking with Shirarose Wilensky. Thank you so much again for taking this time out and sharing with us.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
You're welcome. You have a good evening.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.